Here to weigh in is Texas Congressman Mac Thornberry, chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. Mr. Chairman, thank you for being here this morning. What message is President Trump sending with this action?
Well, I think he is sending a message that what Russia has been doing across the board is unacceptable. And a similar message is conveyed because of the targeted assassination in Britain, where the president stood with our allies and made it clear that we're not going to accept that. I'd say an even stronger message, but beyond the sanctions and the other things, is what we're beginning to do with our military. And as that tragic report you just had emphasizes, we need to do better for our military to make sure we're supporting them appropriately, but at the same time it sends a strong message to Russia, North Korea, and others that we're going to stand up and defend ourselves.
Some say these don't go far enough. To that you say what?
It's a step. It's not a total answer. I think there are more sanctions that could be considered, but we also shouldn't lose sight of what else the administration's been doing. Finally, they have provided defensive weapons to Ukraine, even though many of us in Congress have been pushing the Obama people to do that for years. This administration has called out treaty violations. So the sanctions are part of what they're doing to push back against Russian expansion. I do think this also points out Russia's been doing a lot of things. Cyber, the targeted assassinations, but also rebuilding their nukes and putting new military capability into Syria. So it's a broad range that they're doing. We have to have a broad-ranging response.
I just heard you say, Mr. Chairman, that other sanctions should be considered. Could you give us an example of how these could go further?
Well, these sanctions, I believe, are targeted against specific individuals. And I think in many ways for Russia that's appropriate, because the best description I've heard is they operate kind of like a mafia family. So you target some of these sanctions against some of these oligarchs. I think that's good. Now, there are probably others that we could target. What we can also do is help wean European and other countries off of Russian energy, and that targets not only the oligarchs, but the whole economy. So there's some other economic steps we can take, as well as rebuilding our military, speaking forcefully with our allies. Again, you've got to have a broad range here.
And now promises of retaliation from Russia. What do you make of their response so far, considering this was just 24 hours ago that these new sanctions were announced?
Well, remember, Putin's like the schoolyard bully. He boasts about what he's going to do to you, kind of like that speech he gave a couple weeks ago where he laid out all of those new nuclear weapons that he was talking about. So he will use threats and intimidation and try to get you to back down. The worst thing you can do is to back down, because he'll keep pushing just like a bully does. So we got to stand up to him.
Mr. Chairman, you have mentioned many times in the past couple of minutes about rebuilding our military, and military spending is something that you are very concerned about. And we are facing another government funding deadline, March 23rd, coming up. The omnibus bill, what is your plan for the military spending portion?
Well, we've got to pass it. Now, there are going to be a number of things in that bill because it's one of those big bills. There'll be a number of things in it that I don't like. But to me, the first job of the federal government is to defend the country. And for the reasons that you were just getting in the report from the Pentagon, we have fallen behind in supporting our men and women adequately. The bill that we're going to vote on next week, for all its flaws, begins to fix those problems. And to me, that overrides any other concern that anybody has. So to support our men and women of the military, and also to send a clear message to Russia, we need to pass that bill next week.
Something that is in all of our best interests, supporting our military and making it as strong as possible. Chairman Mac Thornberry, we thank you for your time this morning, sir.
Thank you.